For every person, there are challenges. Challenges are as unique as we are, as our lives are, as what it is we're striving for, what it is we're working for, what it is we're pushing for. And so, one of the things that I've been doing is asking for people who listen in to give me your challenges. Tell me your struggles. Tell me what it is that you are working through or working on to get to the other part of your journey, the next part of your journey, the next level of your journey. How do you get there? Well, that depends on what it is you're struggling with, what it is you need to overcome. So do me a favor as you are jumping on right now. If you are watching live or listening to live, would you share this video with a friend or a family member? Would you leave me a comment as you jump on so that I know that you are even here in the first place? I'm going to be watching. And hopefully we can just start a dialogue today. I'm trying to do more and more of these live recordings. Maybe you're watching me on LinkedIn. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Maybe you're watching me on Facebook, wherever it is. Welcome in. Welcome in and welcome in. By the way, if you're watching on replay, would you just type replay in the comments? I want to know who's watching after the fact. But we've got a topic for today that I think is going to be a good one. Hopefully one that helps some people get set free. I recently received a message from someone who simply said, Maurice, I need you to talk about resentments. She said, I've done a lot of growing. I've done a lot of changing. I've done a lot of evolving in my life. And I'm not who I used to be. And this particular person, I know that that's the truth because I've counseled her. She's someone who I've actually got a chance to watch as she has gone from a person who was struggling mightily with a lot of things in life to being a person who I call an overcomer, someone who is an example for many people of what to do and what to become. And yet, she said, now listen, Maurice, I've done all this growing, I've done all this healing, I've done all this work. But every once in a while, I find myself thinking about my resentments. And the problem with resentments is that when the resentments come, they can be all consuming. And so even if for 23 hours of the day you have been resentment free, if in hour 24 your mind shifts to that place, you can get stuck there if you're not careful. She said, Maurice, what do I do with these resentments? What do I do with these feelings? How do I get through them? And so that is the topic of conversation. And maybe you know someone who struggles with resentment, with unforgiveness, with feeling stuck in feelings of different types. If that's you, would you send this link right now to a friend? Say, hey, you're not going to want to miss this. You're going to want to hear what it is that gets brought up in this conversation. Hey, I know that you need this. I'll begin by saying that there are some resentments I've had to work through in my life. For some of you, you have read my book, Your Butt is Too Big. And if you have had an opportunity to read about some of the very real situations in my life. The reality is that nobody has a picture perfect life, and I certainly don't. And the truth is, I don't look like what I've been through. I grew up in a house where there was some domestic violence, a house where there was a lot of bitterness amongst the family members. And sometimes we all talked to each other crazy, and it wasn't the best of places to be in at times. And as I grew, I had my share of resentments and even my share of unforgiveness. And when I began not only my healing walk, but my Christian walk, I realized that I was going to have to heal my mind, heal my heart, and heal what it was that was happening on the inside of me in order to really be able to make the most of my life. See, the reality is that here's the problem with resentments. If you are a person who has real resentments, what they do is they cloud your judgment. They cloud your ability to reason and rationalize when it comes to you and the direction of your resentment. They keep you from really knowing what is up and what is down. They just make things very blurry, very discombobulated. And they can create for you a blind spot. So in your areas of not having to deal with resentment, not having to deal with unforgiveness, you may be very, very well off, wise in your thinking, wise in your approach, balanced in your interactions of life. But in that area, you will find that that's where you struggle. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to say, well, this is just who I am. You'll relate so deeply to those resentments that the resentments begin to just seem like you. I'm just a hardened person. I'm just a person who needs to know how to protect myself. There's things that you will begin to embody and you'll see it as a part of your identity. And so if that's you, if that's something that you've been struggling with, the beginning of that journey is you're going to have to acknowledge it. That there are areas of your life where you get stuck, where emotionally you find yourself getting stagnant, where no matter what you do, it seems like you just get back to those same bitter emotions, those same broken feelings, those same stuck things time and time again, even as time passes, even in the midst of a healing journey. And so the first question that I would ask you is simply, have you been willing to get honest with yourself? There are people who have resentments, very, very strong resentments in their lives, and have never acknowledged it. I've sat down with so many clients and they have resentments with mom, resentments with dad. They have serious resentments with their partner, bitterness about certain things and how things went in life. And they say, I'm over it. But their emotions speak a different story. Their self-worth and self-esteem tell a different story. Their very countenance, the way that they show up to the room, shows that they're not as over things as they say they are. And so the first step in the journey of overcoming resentment is to get honest with you. And by the way, if you can't get honest on your own, that's when you need a coach. That's when you know you need to consider a therapist or a counselor. Those are the moments when you say, hey, Maurice, I need to talk about this because every time I think about this area, I get caught up, but then I don't really want to process it. I don't really want to think about my thinking. It would be too overwhelming. The truth is, I must be willing to acknowledge what I feel and why I feel it. Because you cannot fix what you will not face. I'll say that again because somebody needs to hear it. You cannot fix what you will not face. So every person in life will find yourself at a crossroads where either you're going to face a thing or flee from a thing. You're going to battle a thing and get through a thing, or you're just going to be on the run. And running away from your problems never fixes your problems, never heals your problems, never evolves you past your problems, never really gets you to a place where your problems aren't your problems still. So step number one, when resentments are there and are clear, is you must be willing to acknowledge what you feel. Feel what you feel. That doesn't mean you have to stay stuck in it. That doesn't mean you have to stay broken in it. It doesn't mean you have to stay lost in it, but you must face it. Okay, Maurice, that sounds good, but I'm a businessman, but I'm a pastor. But Maurice, I got a lot of responsibility. I'm a mama, I'm a daddy, I'm a teacher. I've got all kinds of people reporting to me. I can't afford to be dealing with my resentments. Well, the truth is that if you're not careful, your resentments that you don't deal with head on will come out sideways. That if I have bitterness within myself, if I have unforgiveness in myself, if I have different thoughts and feelings and emotions that I'm not dealing with, they will come out and end up dealing with me in all of the wrong ways. So it is very, very important for individuals to acknowledge what it is you're feeling. Step number two, after I acknowledge it, is I'm going to have hard conversations about how it is affecting me that maybe I haven't noticed. In other words, it's one thing to say, this is the thing that's happening. This is the thing that's bothering me. This is the thing that is affecting me. But now I have to be willing to do a deeper dive. This is where many people don't want to go. How is your bitterness affecting you? I mean, you know about the emotions that are obvious when they come up, when all of a sudden you get angry, when all of a sudden you get frustrated, when all of a sudden you start crying. You know that. But what are the effects that this stuff has had on you that you don't know? Does it make you short-tempered at times? Does it make you not trusting of the people who are trustworthy and have proven themselves to be? Does it keep you from being the full expression of who you were put on the earth to be? What are the effects your problems are having? Because if I don't know, then I can't work on it. I can't heal from it. I can't grow past it. I must increase my awareness. Now, again, these are great conversations that you can have with loved ones and helping you identify these things. These are moments where you can sit with God and you can have God to show you what it is you don't know about you. And absolutely, these are moments with a coach, with a counselor, with a therapist when you say, hey, help me see me more clearly. Because I have to know the depths at which my resentments and my frustrations and my problems are affecting my life, are affecting my leadership, are affecting the way that I show up in life. Hopefully this is good to you so far. Again, if you are watching right now, make sure you are in the comments. Let me know that you're watching. Feel free, make comments, ask me questions live. Let me know what's going through your head and what's going through your heart as we go through this, because that helps me to show up and serve you well. That's one of the things that's great about going live, by the way, is that if I was on an actual coaching call or if I was speaking to a group of individuals, they have the ability to access me in real time and get the wisdom and logic or whatever it is that I have to give in that moment. Well, the same is true of live. And right now, there's not a lot of people watching. Well, this is perfect. If you're watching, then this must be for you. So make sure you tell me how I can best support you. So we begin by just trying to identify what it is that is the problem. Then by taking a deeper dive and a deeper look to understand what it is that is being impacted and affected in my life. Step number 3. Then step number 4, I have to begin the healing journey. I have to begin the healing journey. And healing, I call it a journey for a reason, that if you have resentments that you're harboring, you've probably had them for some time. So expecting to spin around in a circle, click your heels 2 times and say there's no place like home, and now all of your bitterness and brokenness goes away, that is just not realistic. I know that God can do all things. I know that God is a healer. He is all those things. And so healing is your portion. But the truth is that I'm still going to have to walk out my healing and work out my healing as I go. There are people who I talk to often who say, Maurice, listen, here is the reality. I have worked to find peace in my circumstances, but I haven't been able to forgive from my circumstances. In essence, they're saying, look, no, I've done my therapy sessions. I've done my counseling sessions. I've worked on how I feel about certain things. But the truth is, I don't know how to forgive this person. In fact, and here's the harder one, this is the hard reality that a lot of people feel and face, is they say, I don't think that the person who I need to forgive deserves my forgiveness. Whew. You ever felt that? That's a thing when you feel that thing. I don't feel like the person deserves for me to forgive them. I don't even think they want to be forgiven because they don't feel bad about what they did. So why would I forgive them? Have you been there? Have you felt that or faced that in your life? Woo! Here's reality. One of the lessons that I always try to teach people is this. I want you to imagine that there is a room. This is a room where there are prison cells. It is a hallway full of prison cells. And in each of those cells, there is someone who has gone unforgiven. Inside of that cell is the person who did something to you to hurt you when you were a young child. There is someone in another cell who hurt you in your 20s and somebody who hurt you in your 30s. There's about 3-4 people in there, from people who scarred you in your 30s. And you look into the prison cell and you see a person and you say, today, this is the day that I want to try to work to forgive that person. And as you look at them in the prison cell, your brain is trying to come up with why on earth it is that you need to forgive them. They don't deserve to be forgiven. They hurt me. They scarred me. They wounded me. It's unacceptable what they did. Here's the phrase. It is unacceptable that they hurt you, and therefore it is also unacceptable for them to keep you stuck in the prison of your mind. I need to say that again. It is, in fact, unacceptable that they wounded you. It's unacceptable and unfathomable what they did to you. the person who touched you, the person who cheated on you, the person who betrayed you. It is unacceptable that they hurt you. And it is also unacceptable for their actions to keep you stuck in the prison of your mind. You see, the truth is that when you're looking in that prison cell and seeing their face, at first it looks like them. But upon further investigation, you find out that the person really staring at you in that prison cell is you. This is a part of you that is stuck. A part of you that is feeling broken. A part of you that cannot get uncaged from this place. And so forgiveness is the act of being freed from the bondage and the burdens that have kept you in a place because of what happened to you. My forgiveness helps set me free. This is so incredibly important to know. My brother Dan, I see him in the comments right now, and I have heard him talk about this to countless audiences, and he and I have gone back and forth about this, helping individuals get set free in a minute. And by the way, man, these kind of conversations, they do it for people. That in your mind, you believe, no, I've got to keep my auntie stuck in this prison. I got to keep that ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend stuck in the prison. The uncle who hurt me, the person who's wounded me and scarred, I got to keep them in the prison because they don't deserve to get out. And the truth is, they're not there. You're harboring your resentments, but it's actually only hurting you. Because they're actually somewhere else living their life, probably not thinking about you. You're stuck in your thoughts of them, and they've forgotten about you many times. I'm not saying that because you're forgettable. I'm saying that because people get busy living life. They've got their own stuff that they're stuck in. And the greatest thing that you can do is to go through the process of forgiveness and working through healing of those areas of your life. And you'll have to give yourself permission to do so. Here's the words, imperfectly. That anytime something needs to be a process and a journey, it means you'll get it right sometimes and wrong sometimes. So even the woman who asked me the question, Maurice, I've got these resentments and I've been working on myself for years, but sometimes the resentment comes back. It doesn't mean that she hasn't been doing the right things. It doesn't mean that she's not going to God with her problems. It doesn't mean she's not going to a therapist for her issues. It doesn't mean that she's not trying to get better. It means that in all these things, there are processes and practices. And when you say yes to the healing journey and the growth journey, understand that every journey will have milestones. And the milestone of a marathon is that you reach a mile but have another mile to go. Woo, that was kind of deep. That helped me if it didn't help you. I'm going to say it again because maybe I needed to hear it. When you're running in the midst of a marathon and you reach the milestone of a mile marker, the milestone is simply an indication that you get to run the next mile. Maurice, what's so profound about that? Because the reason that many people get stuck in their healing journey is because they reach a point when they feel like they've grown so much and evolved so much and healed so much that everything is behind them. But the truth is that when you heal to a place, you are now just more mature to handle the next part of the race. That I had to do a certain amount of healing when it came to my childhood trauma. I've got some wounds and I've got some scars. I talk a lot about the wound and the scar. The wound is fresh. It's open. It's still real and raw and relevant. The scar is something that has fully healed. It's not sensitive to touch anymore. I can talk about it. You can see that it's there, but it's just a scar. I've got both of them. And there are some things where in my 20s, I had to do a certain amount of work to heal from how I felt about parents and how I felt about family. And I had to go through this process. And then I got to my 30s and I got married. And now I had different healing I had to do and different processing I had to do because I was a different version of me seeing life with a different lens. And then in my late 30s, I became a father. And the perspective of a father changed my understanding of what it was to be a son. So then I had to process again all of the feelings and the thoughts of emotion from a different perspective, a higher place. Reaching a mile marker just simply gives you permission to run the next mile. That when you're in a healing journey, there's different elevated healing that needs to take place for you. And sometimes in the first part, you just cried all the time and you were angry all the time. But maybe by the time you reach step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6 in the process, you're not even angry anymore, but you still have to grow. You don't cry those tears anymore, but you still have to learn and evolve. It's not on the forefront of your mind, but sometimes what's playing in the background of your heart still plays a role in your life. I need to say that again. Think about that. See, when the issue is real and raw at the beginning of a process, it's at the forefront of your mind. You can't stop thinking about it. You're losing sleep because of it. You're crying all the time. You're angry all the time. You're bitter all the time. You're frustrated all the time. The beginning of the process, it's at the forefront of your mind. Be careful when your problems have gone to the background of your mind. Make sure you know what's playing in the background of the soundtrack of your life. Make sure you understand how the healing journey is affecting you now. Is there a remnant of emotion? Is there a film of the filth of the past? Is there anything from before that is standing before you if only you paid attention? Or anything from behind you that is still behind you but hidden? See, these are the questions that I have to be willing to know, because once I have said yes to the journey of healing, I must then walk out the journey. And walking out the journey, it changes as I grow, as I evolve, as I mature. I hope I'm making sense right now. I know that somebody needed this message, but if nobody else did, the person who asked for this message needed it. And by the way, I want to encourage you as you're sitting and you're listening to this, don't hesitate to say, Maurice, can you do an episode about? Maurice, will you please come on and talk about? Because I decided that in season 3 of Hope Rising, that I wasn't just going to bring on guests. That season 1, it was all other people talking, and season 2, I had all these people on, and some of you guys heard, but when I had about 7 more episodes, I had a bunch of audio problems. I had to throw all the last episodes away, which was very, very frustrating for me. And when it was time to jump on season 3, and I've got several big guests lined up already. I have multiple actually. One of whom they just made a TV show about, and the TV show was just airing, and she agreed to do it. Another one who is a television personality that people in Northeastern Ohio would know, because she's been all over your TV for many, many years. I've got multiple people who are coming, but I'm not starting this way. That I sensed that how I needed to start this season was getting in front of a microphone and just speaking live. So don't hesitate to let me know what it is that you need. And the question is, what do you need now? Because in this mile of life, you don't need what you needed before. It's different. There's a different recipe for peace. There's a different recipe for love. There's a different recipe for contentment. There's a different recipe for you to feel like you are fully walking in what you're capable of. There's just a different recipe. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just now. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So God is still taking the things, the dirty things and the frustrating things and the awful things, and he's working them together for your good. What does that recipe look like in this season? And by the way, we're going to have to talk about this. This is the hardest part. It's easier to talk about the resentments that you have for other people than it is to talk about the resentments you have towards yourself. See, I just want to let you sit in that for a minute. See, I'll talk about the person I get frustrated with that's outside of myself, but it's hard for me to talk about me. Because I'm the only person who knows every bad thing I've ever done. I've said many times in life that if you saw my low light reel, the low light reel, that's the video that plays that shows not the highlights and the best moments, but the low lights, the worst moments, the stuff that would make you cringe and make you shudder. That everybody who's watching right now would be like, "Oh God, I don't know if I really want to listen to his podcast." Truth is, that's probably the case for you too, because we've all said some things and done some things we regret. And so, since I'm the only one who knows all the things I've done, just me and Jesus, I have to learn how to also heal the resentments I have towards me, the hang-ups that I keep hanging around me. I need to forgive me just like I need to forgive everybody else. Maurice, it's okay. You made some mistakes. Maurice, you got it wrong. You said some things. You thought some things. Shoot, the Bible tells me you just look at something the wrong way and you can sin. So that tells me that the sin that's on the inside of me is heavy. And yet, if God says I'm worth forgiving, I must be worth forgiving. If not to you and not to me, to him. That I've got to treat the Son of God with love. That you've got to treat the daughter of God with grace and mercy. Because that's what God says. That's what God does. God thought enough of us to send a son to die for us. So if that's the case, I got to work on forgiving me. And so there's a very real part of the process when it comes to talking about resentments, where it's not just the external resentments of dealing with other people did to you, but it's also dealing with your own consequences of your own actions, your own mindsets and your own frustrations about what you've done. I say all the time, I've hurt people, I've wounded people, I've scarred people, I've left some people where I've been to therapy because of some people, but there's probably some people who have been to therapy because of me. And if that's the case, I'm going to need to work on taking myself out of the prison of my own mind, where I refuse to forgive myself and refuse to grow through some pain and some problems. And one of the reasons that I think this is important is because that's often why you won't let go of the person that you harbor resentments for. It's one of the secrets of this process. That step 4 of this process is turning it on you. That I got to begin the healing journey when it comes to everybody else. But step 4, I got to now walk in the healing journey towards me. Because what happens is so-and-so did something to you that wounded you. And you might have done the work to forgive them, except for the fact that you felt like you gave them access to you in a way that then led them to hurting you. So because you feel like you're partially responsible, you haven't forgiven them or you. You walked down the wrong alleyway, but you were on the wrong road to begin with, so you feel like you were responsible for where it went and how it happened anyway, so you don't let go of the guilt and the shame. You know that you talked crazy to them, so when they finally talked crazy to you, you felt like you got what was coming to you. So you don't know how to forgive them for what they said, but you don't know how to forgive you for what you stirred. Am I speaking the truth? That we must face the fact that when we forgive others, there's always going to be work where we must also forgive ourselves, either for the role we played or for the role we think we played. That we have to be let go and set free from the guilt and shame that is keeping us burdened and keeping us bound and keeping us stuck and keeping us stifled. And we have to stop believing that just because we said some things and did some things in life, that anybody can just treat us any kind of way. Because it's not real and it's not true. You may have fallen, you may have faltered, and you deserve to be respected. You may have gotten it wrong, and you may have done any numbers of things, but you deserve to be forgiven just like everyone else. We have to stop walking around with the resentments, even when it comes to who we see ourselves as. It's so necessary That they can't just be about me trying to forgive others and me trying to let go of resentments with others. It has to also turn towards me, or I will always stay stuck. If I can look at you and think to you, hey, you know what? You deserve mercy. If I can look at you and say, hey, you deserve grace. Why not me? Why not me? My question today is, why not you? You deserve freedom just like everyone deserves freedom. You don't have to walk through life stuck and stagnant. You don't have to sleepwalk through life and never really live life. It's not necessary. You can grow from this. You can gain from this. You can get to the other side of it. But the trigger is the understanding that you're worth the journey of healing that comes. Do me a favor, just put in the comments if that's something you needed to hear. If you haven't yet, would you share this with a friend, share it with a family member, share it with somebody that you know they've been grappling either with forgiveness issues towards others or forgiveness issues towards themselves. Would you share this with somebody? By the way, I don't say this often enough, but that's how what helps me grow in this season, right? The Lord told me that I got to be on and I got to go live as often as possible. I'm really trying to do it every day. So when you don't see me on for a day, it means I just didn't get it. I'm trying to get into enough of a rhythm to get on every day. And I'll get as close as I can, and I'll be kind to myself and gentle with myself in the midst. But you guys can help me by just sharing the message. That's all I need. I need to have a chance to have my voice heard. That is what healing does. It reinforces for you that your voice is necessary, that your perspective is valuable, that your very existence has worth and merit, and that why not you when it's time to heal? When it's time to be unburdened, why not you? Why not you? And so I'm going to begin to close today. I want to say to anybody who's been carrying around resentments for far too long, you are worth the journey. You got to start off by figuring out what's going on in there, in that heart, in that mind, what's happening. And then question number 2, to go deeper. Now, what's it affecting? What's it triggering? What are you experiencing that you're experiencing in part because of that? We're not asking the question to play the blame game, but because you cannot fix what you will not face. And then you must take the courageous step of beginning the healing journey. One step at a time, one courageous conversation at a time, one prayer at a time. That healing is moment to moment. Healing is moment to moment. And I have to begin by healing in ways of forgiving those I harbor resentments for outside of me. It's the people, places, and things I have encountered, and then it needs to go internal. I need to do the forgiveness work on me. I need to find peace within me, understanding that I haven't done it all right and I haven't got it all right. There's a reason, especially as a Christian, there's a reason that you needed a Savior and that you still need one. And then after you have done all of those things, after you have said yes to all of those things, after you have gone through your processes and procedures, don't stop letting God heal you. Don't let yourself get to a point where you say, enough is enough. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Don't say, I've been healing in this area for 10 years. I'm done. I've been working on myself in that place for 20 years. Enough is enough. Scripture says, do not grow weary in well-doing, for you will reap a harvest if you faint not. You see, the beautiful thing in Scripture is that it tells you that there's something called the fruit of the Spirit. There is fruit that is birthed from within us if we continue to let God work on us. So if you don't have enough peace in your life, if you're not the one who brings forth patience, If you don't have the virtues that you pray to have, then you're going to have to stick with the process. Year 30, year 40, year 50, year 60, I don't care how deeply entrenched in your healing journey you are, God will still get something out of it if you don't grow weary in doing well. And when, not if, but when you start to grow weary, you remember that the reason that God said it is because he saw it before he said it. He knew who he was talking to. He knew that the people who would read his word would struggle, just like he knew that the people he was addressing in that moment in the scripture were struggling. Anytime God says don't do something, it's because he knows that it's natural for it to happen. Every time the angels come, they say, don't be afraid. Why? Because angels must be scary enough that you get scared when you see them. When God says be strong and courageous, it's probably because he knows that weakness is coming and the lack of courage is at the forefront of your mind. So when God says do not grow weary, he's saying, I know that the weariness is at hand. I know that it's on the forefront of your being. Now you have to not let go. Don't be consumed by it even though you feel it. Don't be overwhelmed and overwrought by it, even though it's present, but push past it. Believe more than it. Are you only believing the weariness, or are you believing in the faith that God is doing a thing even now? That has to be said because sometimes people, when the weariness comes, they think, well, I must have got it wrong. I must not be the one that God was addressing. He was talking to the people who don't get weary. And since I am weary, I missed it. God tells the person who's going to grapple with weariness not to be weary so they can overcome what it is that is trying to overcome them. Now, see, that is so good right there. If you could just sit in that revelation, if you could just sit in that truth, that God knew before he spoke it that you would struggle, that I would grapple, that we would get stuck. And despite his understanding of it, he gives instructions like, do not grow weary, saying you're as weary as you are. Now don't let it grow. Don't let it multiply. Don't let it keep spreading. Stop it right here. By believing that there are fruits that will come from this, that there are things in your character that will come from this, that something will come in your personal evolution that will not only touch you, but will touch others. If only you would believe me more than you believe it. That's what comes when you don't just let go to all of the resentments that you teach in your mind. That's it. Francis says, teach us how to conquer humanity. See, that's what God is doing. God understands that in our nature is to be weary. In our nature is to be self-fulfilling. We walk in these self-fulfilling prophecies. Everything's going to fall apart. Nothing's going to work out. And I was just bored and everything. Oh. And we get stuck in these places. Our minds are very, very powerful things, and they work for good, but they also work for evil. They pull us down to places. The power of the tongue, Scripture says, so powerful that it's like the sail of the ship, the rudder of the ship. A small rudder just moves a whole huge ship. The same is true as the tongue of the man or the woman, that we speak these words sometimes out loud, but sometimes it is in silence. And what is said in silence becomes cyclical, and we find ourselves drowning in our humanity, drowning in our doubts, in our worries, and our fears. And God is saying, when you feel like you're stuck in your humanity, turn to my divinity. God says you can come up to another place in me. Jesus said, if I live in you and you live in me, you will bear much fruit. He's the true vine. When we're connected to him, that he's in us and we're in him, and when our humanity gets to be too much, we lean on God's divinity. He's the same God whose power is made perfect in our weakness, which means all of the places where you don't have enough, God has more than enough. All of the areas where you have deficiencies, you find out God's sufficiencies. He's a sufficient God. His grace is sufficient. So no matter what you're drowning in, God is capable of raising you above. It's a word for you today if you let it be. It's a word today that could change your day and change your outlook on your situation if you just let it. So my encouragement today is in your mind. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. In your mind, I want to encourage you to walk to the basement. The deepest and darkest corridors of your mind and your heart. And I want you to give you permission to you turn the corner, and there is this long row of prison cells. And as you walk down that hallway, with every step, you can hear the steps as they echo through the building, and most of the rooms are darkly lit. But there's probably going to be some room down there that is going to be well lit, and when you look into that room, you see someone who is stuck in the prison of your mind. Might even be a couple folk hand in hand singing Kumbaya in there. They could be in there doing something trifling. I don't know what you see, but you peer in to that cell and you see someone who is so clearly on your radar for a reason. Your mind at first will tell you, well, they're in that prison cell because they deserve to be here. How they wrecked me, how they ruined me, how they affected me, how they screwed me over. They deserve to be in that prison cell. And then I want you to remember our words. It was unacceptable what they did. It was unacceptable how they did it. And now it is unacceptable for me to allow that thing or those things to keep me stuck in a prison of my own mind. And I want you to imagine that you hear footsteps walking down the hallway. It is the footsteps of Jesus. And one step at a time, you hear his steps, and they are confident and they are strong. And it's almost like all of a sudden that the heaviness begins to lift as he walks down the hall. And the darkness seems to be lightening as he walks down the hall. And now he comes up to the prison cell and he asks you a question. Do you truly wish to get well? Do you really want to be free? And if the answer is yes, that you want to be free, then you let Jesus take the key and put it in the door and turn the key and open up the door so that you yourself can walk out as the memory flees. And you understand that in that moment, you're not saying that you'll never stress again, you'll never trip again, you'll never worry again, but you'll always remember that Jesus has opened up the cell. And you don't have to live in that place anymore. So if you ever accidentally go there, you walk yourself back out. You remind yourself that I want this freedom so badly that I will find my identity with memories that are not this one. I don't have to just identify with my trauma, my drama, and my pain. I can identify with victory and freedom and truth. That's the hope for you. That's the prayer for you. That you let God into that place to bring you freedom. I hope this has been a helpful conversation for you. I hope that it has guided you into some positive places. If you're just now joining me, I want to encourage you to go back to the beginning and listen again. If you have been listening to my podcast somewhere other than where I was live, I want to encourage you to leave comments, to send this to a friend or a family member, someone who needs it even now. And then would you leave me your comment on what do you want me to talk about? I'm going to be jumping on here. We can talk about business. We can talk about the mind. We can talk about the heart. I just want to talk about the things you need. Give me fuel for the fire so that I know that I'm really speaking life to those who need life. That's the encouragement. That's the request. That's the question. Also, for some of you, you might be feeling like, hey, I want to experience some of Maurice's coaching. I want to experience some of Maurice's Christian counseling. I want to encourage you to go to my website, mauricefmartin.com. You can sign up for a free clarity call there. We'll sit down for 20 minutes and we'll just talk a little bit and I'll try to give you some clarity and some insight. And for some of you, maybe you just need to purchase my book. You can purchase it at mauricefmartin.com. You can also go to Audible, listen to the audiobook there. I've actually got more than one book. I always talk about it like there's only one. There's Your Butt is Too Big. There's also the Your Butt is Too Big workbook, which is very, very powerful when you're trying to work through your resentments. There is the Your Butt is Too Big prayer journal. And then there is the book that is small but powerful, Save the Day. That just talks about a very, very, you can read that book every night if you wanted to. It's just a reminder not to run away from what God is calling you to walk towards. So with that in mind, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. I thank you for your participation. Now I thank you for your likes, your clicks, and your shares. And I'm looking forward to seeing you another time on Hope Rising, where the unfulfilled go for fulfillment and those who inspire go for another dose of inspiration. We'll see you soon.